Hello and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
And my name's Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
All right, here we go.
Okay. So Todd Haynes. I haven't seen too many of his films. What about you?
I've seen quite a few.
Okay.
And I was having this, I don't know, things go through my brain and all of a sudden it becomes a memory. And I'm like, did that happen in real life? Did that happen in my imagination? What? And I was trying to remember this movie that way back in the 90s that my roommate, or actually I was living at her house, so I guess I was her housemate, and she had a boyfriend, and the boyfriend brought this movie over, and we started watching it, and I was like, what is this? And it's this prison movie, and it's very homoerotic, and I was like, what's happening here? What is this movie? And I was trying to remember in my mind recently, for whatever reason, I don't know what brought it up in my head, whether or not that was a real movie or what was that? And I started to try to figure out if I could Google whatever references to the movie. And sure enough, it came up. And it's Todd Haynes' first featured film, Poison. Or Poisons.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember now.
It's Poison.
It is Poison. Yeah. And I don't remember much about the movie, but enough for it to have stuck somewhere. And how one would call it graphic at the time, but now it's like, okay, where's that line? And the unapologetic force of just putting on screen what you want to put on screen and not apologizing about it. And so I was fascinated by that. And I had no idea it was him, and now I do. And now I know why I like his movies.
Well, he wasn't even a him back then, really. I guess if that was his first feature, you know, I mean, he was just starting out. Well, the first movie I saw of Todd Haynes was I'm Not There. I think I might have seen a little bit of Velvet Goldmine, like on a cable channel or something, just in passing. And I was like, wait, this kind of looks like David Bowie-ish type of a thing. And then we talked about Carol. So that's the other film of his that I've seen. So, and I didn't know he did Mildred Pierce. That's interesting. So he's worked with a lot of like high power female actresses, because you're talking Cate Blanchett, you're talking Kate Winslet, and the Rooney Mara and Cate Blanchett again, and now in this movie that we're talking about today, May December, keep wanting to say May December, you've got Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman. So that's
interesting little bit of trivia. Oscar nomination, Emmy award winning, Oscar nomination. Wow. Every single one of those women in almost every one of those films. Mildred Pierce was a miniseries.
HBO,
so that won Kate her first Emmy, I believe. I'm not sure if it's her first, but I know it's one of her first. And just recently, again, Mar of Easttown, I think.
Mayor of Easttown.
Mayor, what'd I say, Mar? Yo, Mar, get the door. So
get some water ice.
Get some Mayor. It's Mayor. It's not Mar. I can hear her now. Every one of my relatives would be smacking me on the back of my head. So yes, so he has something, and they bring something that put them in this accolade world. And interestingly enough, one of Cate Blanchett's Oscar nomination is for playing Bob Dylan in I'm Not There. And she came this close to winning it. I mean, it went
amazing.
back and forth. And then, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was Tilda Swinton, but don't quote me on that. No, that doesn't sound right now that I just said it.
07, that sounds right. 07,
does that
was
sound right?
Yeah, that's Michael Clayton year, I think.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. So so I didn't know much about this movie other than the trailer, but when Steph and I watched the trailer, you see a scene that's very close to the end of the movie of Natalie Portman looking into the camera and doing this affected, monologue with an extreme lisp, and Steph was like, "That's bad acting," and I was like, I don't know. It'll be interesting. It's Natalie Portman, so, but the crazy part about this movie to me was from the very beginning, like once that first piano chord hits and you start seeing the cinematography of the movie, I was just like, whoa, this is super campy. Like, it is over the top. Like, it's oppressively self-aware. So that's where I was kind of like, all right, where is this going? So I was wondering how Todd Haynes was going to thread that needle, because I mean, Carol's not that way, and the movies that I've seen of his, you know, they're not really. They're not this kind of like wink and a nod type of a thing. And in this movie, it kind of like rides on this wave of it's
Dum dum
trashiness.
dum. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very 90s, and it seem like there's like gauze on the lens.
Yeah.
I think it was shot like it says, I mean, the stuff that I've read say that it was shot on the Arri Alexa, so shot digitally, but it's got this heavy 16 millimeter film grain applied to it, you know, this kind of like overlay applied to it that makes it just look, you know, it kind of just is dancing, you know, the frame is dancing, and it's that I just reminds me of, what were those shows that did all the recreations, Unsolved Mysteries, and that kind of a thing. Like, it really reminded me of those like 90s shows, and I was just, especially the pet shop part of this film. Not really giving anything away, but there's a pet shop scene, and it just seemed very oh man, it kind of took me back to a different kind of production value, a different kind of production style, I should say. So that was just, it was kind of a blast from the past. But like, so what did you feel about it?
Well, first, let me ask you. So you said I'm Not There and Carol, and now this, right? Everything but I'm Not There and Carol are pretty much this style of, is it supposed to be funny? Is it supposed to be serious? Is it?
Well, what about Far From Heaven? Because I've heard a lot of people talk about that.
Very
and that's
stylized.
Also Julianne Moore.
Very stylized. Very, which is a strange thing to say, realistic soap opera. Like, if soap operas were real people, it has very much a. See, I'm starting to think Todd Haynes is quite brilliant, because he really does teeter on these fine lines of different things. So yes, I would say it wasn't as campy, and campy, I think, is maybe too strong of a word even for this film. I think campy with this type of film might come 50 years from now when people look back on it and they watch it as a midnight movie somewhere, and then it becomes this almost Rocky Horror type of thing where you are in on the joke, but you're also making fun of it at the same time. But it's, the subject matter of this film doesn't lend itself to campy as much as something like Rocky Horror. And Rocky Horror, I don't believe they filmed as campy. That just became campy.
You don't think so?
No, I think they.
You think they filmed it straight up like this is serious?
Yeah.
Really?
How? Well, yeah, I do. I think it was written with the intentions of being, you know, oh my God, the spiders.
What about Clue? What about the movie Clue? Speaking of Tim Curry,
Clue is a farcical comedy. It's noises off. It's a bang one door, hit another door, accidentally get caught sleeping with her as he's sleeping with. I mean, it's a farce. Yeah. It's farce.
Okay.
Campy seems to be something that, from my point of view, that is attached to a project, not necessarily meant to be, like Showgirls. Prime example. And I just saw an interview with Elizabeth Berkley. I believe that's her name.
That's right.
And she said, we had no idea it was going to come across that way. We filmed it as if it was a straight-laced drama, serious thing. We rehearsed seriously. I rehearsed for the dance parts seriously. But if you see that movie, even the first time you see the movie, there's a scene in the pool where she makes love to this guy in the pool, and it is, you can't help from thinking they purposely did it this way to make it campy, because it's so over the top campy. And if anybody knows the scene that I'm talking about, they'll know what I'm talking about, because it's just so exaggerated. This movie, May December, I think is exaggerated because he's blurring the lines of reality TV, reality, and our need for voyeurism in our life, and our need to judge people from this side of the screen. And because at first I thought, well, this should be called May December, aka Blurred Lines Awful Adults. But that's a judgment. And so I actually started watching it a second time because it had been a little bit of time in between the first time I saw it and this last time. And I thought, I don't think I'm supposed to be judging these people. I think I'm supposed to figure out my barometer on my moral code and value if I was involved in this situation, not necessarily the May December situation, the young boy, the woman situation, but just being around it or knowing people in it or being part of the family. How would I approach it and find some kind of human quality about these people to where people just do crazy things in this world? And now, and I often say 5 decades rotating around the sun, it gives you a perspective that's different than I would have had 30 years ago. Maybe 30 years ago, I would have been laughing out loud at this film. But now I'm like, ooh. And here's why. He starts this film out with basically one of the first big dialogue scenes is between Gracie, Julianne Moore's character's friend, and Natalie Portman's character at the picnic table out in the backyard. And she says, the friend says that, everything's just starting to settle down. And now this movie, I hope you know that these are revered people in the community. They are serious adults. They are human beings. So be kind. And that is repeated throughout the movie. Be kind to our story. The young man says it. It's said later on. So for me, I can't stand back and like throw lines out at it like Rocky Horror. That's campy.
Yeah.
But when the music and the second time when you listen to the score, you realize that it starts off as this melodramatic soap opera campy dun dun dun.
Yeah.
I don't think we have enough hot dogs.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna bring up. and the zoom in, and you're just like, oh, okay. But then you're right. By the end, there's more stakes,
and the score and everything else follows that. So the whole like ding dong ding, like those aren't the notes.
Yeah. Booty.
Okay, and then there's a pause, and then another booty, then a pause. Later on, it's connected together, and it sounds much more serious as a piece of orchestration to what's going on because the stakes are higher and higher throughout the film. And when I laughed out loud at the hot dog, okay, I immediately felt bad. Instantaneously felt bad because I realized this is a woman who does not know what she has done is as severe as it is to everybody else. And what worries her is not child molestation. It's whether or not they have enough hot dogs for their picnic.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's, and
I instantaneously felt sad for her.
Okay.
Not understanding compassion to the fact that a human being is so bent in a way that hot dogs are a priority and not children born in jail.
Yeah.
I'm trying to skip around sounding judgmental.
Well, yeah. So I think that the movie does do a good job. And as far as the campiness thing is concerned, well, I'll address that. I think, so what you're saying is the campiness cannot be applied initially. It must be applied retroactively after the film is received, is kind of your theory, I guess, which I understand that. But I think with
small
this
clarification real quick.
Yeah.
I don't think the film was made as a campy film. I think the film is being perceived as a campy film in parts.
I think that you're right that Todd Haynes is being surgical with his use of perceived campiness, and he's bringing people in a certain way with that. And like you said, as the film goes on, you get to know these characters a little bit more, and you understand that they're more three-dimensional than just a on paper, than literally a two-dimensional person or two-dimensional character, which is what you would have read in National Enquirer or People magazine or whatever back then. The shots that she's reading through, that Natalie Portman's reading through from the time. And this is based on like a real Mary Kay Letourneau, I think was her name.
All those pictures look just like what they looked like for real in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, it's got a basis in fact and a basis in history and all of that stuff. But I think that he's more interested in a couple of things. Number one, he's interested in like, why are we so drawn to the true crime issues and the true crime things? I mean, those are some of the most popular podcasts are the true crime podcasts, and it puts you in a you're right, a seat of judgment against something like, oh, I would never do that, or I that's not, that's wrong, that's not something that I would approve of, and it also gets you into an elevated level of like, well, this person's bad, and I recognize this person's bad, therefore transitive property, I'm good. So I'm better than that person, therefore I'm good. Whereas maybe Todd Haynes is trying to say like, well, not everybody is all good all the time, in the same way that someone who is perceived as bad, or who the narrative is they're bad, they are more complex than the events that happen in their life and the choices that they made in their life. But I think with this particular character, she hasn't dealt with those choices, and her husband, what's his name, Charles Melton, plays Joe, I think. Yeah, he was probably called Joey when he was in 7th grade.
They call him Joey. He's Joe. The film.
Okay.
At points, they've called him Joe. They call him. Yeah, she refers to him as Joey a couple of times.
Okay, well, it's probably how she met him. So it's that kind of like cognitive dissonance of like, she's able to readily talk about the first time they met, and the fact that he's the same age as her son, or one of her kids, and all of that stuff. She's able to that just kind of like moves through her, but I don't think that she's actually she's always putting off dealing with her choices and her position and her actions at the time when he was in 7th grade and she was a grown woman. Whereas now it seems like he is starting to deal. Joe, the Joe character, is starting to try to confront a lot of those things. So that's I think those things are all in the stew, and I think that that's a lot more interesting than just saying like, this lady's a horrible person. And you also get to see the tangential characters. You get to see, her son, who is the same age as Joe. You get to see her husband. You get to see, and I mean, the husband is actually a very, basically written character, but the son is just Georgie is just extremely written. So it immediately causes a dynamic between him and Natalie Portman's character. So, I mean, that's good. But I think that there's certain, it's funny because this movie is very kind of like a simmering movie, but then there's like spikes in the movie. That's one. The Georgie scene with her in the bar is the spike. Another spike is her going to the school. It's so interesting though, like the ways that they kept her there in their town. There's no reason for her to be there that long. To me, it just didn't seem like that. I don't know, she kind of pushed it with the director, said, oh, I need to stay longer. But her going to the school and how she doesn't have the boundaries that she needs to have as an adult. So I don't know if she's trying to become that character.
Well, there's so many things going on.
There's different ways to evaluate
there's so many themes going on, but I think for me, one of the ones that jumped out the very first time I saw it, and it was solidified the second time I saw it, is that just because you're a grown-up does not mean that you cannot make bad choices. And because of self-involvement, your boundaries, you don't know where they lie. So she thinks she's telling a story about an acting exercise, having sex with somebody in a film, but her hubris is so strong that she's like, oh, it's challenging, and the lights, and then the people, and then, you know, you all get into a rhythm. And she thinks she's teaching a class about a technique of how to have sex on camera when her narcissism doesn't even allow her to see that she should not be talking about sex on any level in front of high school students without prior permission and a whole bunch of red tape to jump through. Like, you just don't do that.
It's not what they need at that moment. It's not what those acting students need at that moment.
Thus being so self-involved.
Yeah.
Where you don't even know you're being self-involved. And I think that's what explains Gracie also. That's why I find this film fascinating. Not only is Natalie Portman's character trying to mirror everything, Julianne Moore, when they're in the graduation dress scene, you can see her crossing her hands and being self-conscious about it, and then stopping, and then Julianne Moore kind of seeing it, and then the crossing.
They use the mirrors really well there.
Which I saw an interview with him about that. And that was supposed to be one mirror. And you're supposed two mirrors, and you're supposed to see the young lady in the one, and then the other two, Julianne Moore, and then
it's a 3-shot. Yeah.
And
but there's four things in it.
Yeah.
But it's
and
the
I
daughter.
think his DP came and said, hey, why don't we use one of those 3 layered mirrors that you are 3 sided mirrors
like
that
a
you
window
see.
box.
That you see when you get your thing, but we'll do it in reverse. We'll put it on.
Cool.
Yeah.
His cinematographer is Christopher Blauvelt, who shot a few of Kelly Reichardt's movies. First Cow, which I don't know if you've seen that.
No,
one,
I haven't
but
seen it yet.
It's really good. It's very good. He's shot a couple of them, but he's been working for a while. But
he's
anyway, so
all over this picture, but he's not there at all. And like he nothing is heavy-handed. But going all the way back to campy, the subject matter of this film does not lend itself to laugh out camp. It just doesn't. It's too serious of a subject. And, you know, you're talking about a 13-year-old boy, and you're talking about a sexual predator. Those are the film's terms and film's titles, because that you see her sex offender database, blah, 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 blah. So it's a serious subject. So the camp has to be used in a very particular way, or perceived in a very particular way. And that's why I don't think he ever started out with, we're going to make this campy. I mean, it's like, let's do a tap dance about her seducing a 13-year-old boy. It's just not done. It's not appropriate. It doesn't make any sense.
What about in the middle of the movie, where you see the clip of the TV movie?
Well,
what did you get?
That's a statement. Well, I didn't get camp. What I got was a statement about how true crime, what you were saying about true crime. And yes, that makes sense that we're interested in true crime, because fact is stranger than fiction, and human existence is really odd a lot of the times. And we do some strange ass stuff as people. We just do. And so I never did I feel like, oh, she's bad, that makes me good for judging her for being bad. What I felt was, how does somebody not see it? How did she not see that he was a 13-year-old boy? And the lawyer explains that on some level, which I thought was interesting, because every single time I thought of a question in my mind as I was watching the film, Todd Haynes had an answer for it even before I knew to pose it. Because I kept thinking, well, what about this? And what about that? And then he would bring it up in a scene. I was like, okay, that explains that to a degree. And the lawyer says, it's like she had no idea at all what she had done, that there was nothing wrong, because she was filled with like the first time love, and she was, star-crossed, I believe is what he uses, the star-crossed. Yeah, he makes reference to
lovers.
Yeah, he makes reference to, she was starry-eyed, and that she had no gauge that she was 36 and he was 13, because she was blown away by the feelings that she had. And she says it the best. She says 2 things in the film. She says, I'm naive. I've always been naive. And maybe that served me well, because I'm naive. And then later on, she says, I'm secure. And insecure people they're basically unsafe and they're a mess, but I'm secure. So she knows who she is, and she knows that she's naive, but yet she doesn't know what she's naive about, because then she wouldn't be naive, because then she would know about it. So it's really interesting. And I think overall, the film is more a statement about voyeurism and about tabloid society.
Yeah.
But it's done in such a stealth way. It's done in such a quiet way, because we are sitting there judging those people. And in particular, Natalie Portman's character, who is one of the most manipulative characters I've ever seen on film.
Oh, yeah.
I was blown away by Natalie Portman in this film. And as for Steph and her statement, I love your wife so much, but she is incorrect. That was superb acting. It's probably the best scene in the film. And if you don't know the lisp and you don't know what she's doing, I could see how it was perceived as bad acting, but it's not. It's superb. And the orgasmic release after she does the monologue, I was like, I'm not going to act like I know what that feeling is, but I know what that feeling is. So,
but see, she's playing to a very specific audience, you of which is one of them. So that's, I mean, a monologue like that on screen.
That's the letter.
No, I know it's the letter, but it's a monologue. It's in the film, it's a monologue. But I guess to me, it all points towards the end of the movie. And I don't know if we should, maybe we should say spoilers from now on. It's on Netflix. If you've gotten to this far and you haven't watched the movie, then you can find it on Netflix. Okay, so spoilers.
You literally sound like it's on Netflix. If you want to see it, go see it. But
well, it's like I feel bad explaining how movies
bother.
on the internet work.
Well, like, you said it's on Netflix. That's not an explanation. Go to the start button of your iPad. The iPad is the flat little screen. That's
right.
Explanation.
Do you know what the internet is? Let me tell you what the internet is.
You are so self-aware about being condescending, and you never are. I release you. Stop apologizing. You're not being condescending. You're the technical guy. You're making sure people know where they can find the movie.
That's correct.
It's a nice thing. Dun, dun, dun.
Right. So now everybody past this point has hopefully seen the movie. So the very end of the movie has her doing one of the scenes in her movie.
Yeah.
And it's 3 of them in a row. And I mean, it's a single shot too. And it's interesting because you get to see him reset. You get to see him go back to 1 and all that stuff. But it's not great. Like, do you think the movie's good?
You mean that scene?
That they're making? It seems a bit
what's interesting is
B-movie-ish. It's like we've spent all of this time. We spent however long, 2 hours, with her preparing for this thing, and then she's like, "Oh, I think I'm getting it." And she's got like a freaking snake in her hand. Like, it just seems like a crash of reality. Like, it's just going to be a crappy movie.
The point is not about the scene or the movie or how believable that scene is or how good the movie's going to be. The scene is about self-involved, narcissistic, hubris-ridden people. And because the key to the scene is, wait, no, one more, just for me.
Yeah.
She says that.
I'm getting closer.
I'm getting closer.
Oh.
And
it's getting closer to real, I think is what she says.
Absolutely, that's what she says. And it's getting closer to our understanding of what this film was meant to be. And it's getting closer to our understanding about how we feel about a topic like this. And we're getting closer to an understanding. I mean, it goes deep. And I have a tendency to look for layers that might not be there. But that's where my brain and what interests me and what lights me up. Because I actually think it is there. There's stuff there that only Todd Haynes knows about, and he's wanting you to peel back the onion, and he's wanting you to see certain things, and he's wanting you to know that if you do, once again, back to campy, if you think this is Rocky Horror, laugh at, throw things at the screen, yell back at the screen campy, then what is going on in your life that you think this subject should have that reaction to it? That says a lot more about the audience who reacts to it than about the movie itself. So no, I don't think the intention is at all about good acting or bad acting or a good scene or about a bad scene. I think it's twofold. I think it's to show you the process of what they go through and how they have to do it over and over again in order to find something real. And also back to the monologue. If at this point in the film, you don't know that's her rehearsing a monologue for a movie, either it's she's videotaping herself,
or she's looking in the mirror probably.
Well, I think my first take on it was that she filmed it for the director. So he could see the letter, hear the letter, see what she had found so far, the lisp, the moves, the mouth, the eyes, the whole thing that Natalie Portman really does transform into. It's as subtle can be, but it is a transformation. The way she walks towards Julianne Moore at the end wearing kind of the same colored dress, the whole attitude change she has later on in the film, the whole way she seduces him later on in the film, it's all very much like if they had similar color hair, you could blur your eyes and not know which actress it was. That's how close it is, in my opinion. That's why I think it's a stunning performance on a lot of different levels, but that's one of the reasons. So no, I think it's all about the tabloid world and how people are obsessed with a fight on TikTok, or how people are obsessed with a manager firing somebody on TikTok, or somebody throwing something in somebody's face at a fast food chain, or a Karen or a Kevin, or these racist people who are spewing off about this poor little kid who just wants a lemonade stand to make some money to do whatever. We become fascinated, turn it into a 30-second clip and watch it over and over and over again. That's what's happened 20 years past when this movie supposedly takes place. Okay. So it doesn't matter the medium that you get this information in. We're still a tabloid oriented society where we are the crash, the car crash. No matter how fast you want to get through the intersection, you drive by slow and you slow down to look at the crash. You just do. Even if it's the most horrific thing you're ever going to see in your life, you still have this possession to look. And so I think the end of the film is about us as a voyeuristic audience member watching something that could be something so real, but yet it never will be, because it's an imaginary situation. It is a made up fantasy situation. It is not real. She says that in the student lecture too. She says, is this real? Is it not real? Am I feeling this passion, or am I feeling sexually aroused, or am I pretending to be? She maps that all out then. So yes, do I think Natalie Portman is trying to be a bad actress in that scene? No. But I think what Natalie Portman and Todd Haynes are trying to do is show you how much of a struggle, just on a surface level here, how much of a struggle it is to get something so real on screen, in a scene, in a play. It's not easy. Now, that said, we will never see the results of what that film is going to look like. And when I've seen, and I've stood and seen a scene 5 feet away from me, and then I've seen it on camera, and it looks entirely different. I've been looking at actors, some fairly well known, okay? And I'm like, is that how they're going to do it? Like that doesn't look real. That looks fake. That looks like bad acting. And then whatever happens, the speed of the film, the cinematography, whatever it is, when it transposes to the actual film, it looks real. And it has a lot to do with, of course, they take 25 takes. And if you're David Fincher, you splice it together until you get as real as you possibly can get. So I don't think it's meant to be a real scene. And I don't think it's meant to be bad acting. I think it's meant to show us we have issues when it comes to looking at other people and judging other people and being voyeuristic in nature. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I mean, it kind of does. It's really neat that you can get, I mean, you're getting, like you said, you're getting surface level, or you're getting next level down, and you're getting like the really, really deep level out of this movie. And I'm not trying to say that there's only one way to look at this, obviously, but what I am trying to say is that I was looking for a direction of the film. And I to me, I felt like I got that direction on it started off as, like I said, like in my opinion, super campy. And by the time we get to the end, it seemed like it was just kind of showing you how similar each of these characters really are. It's hard to talk about it because you've got the characters in this movie and you've got the people in the movie that are characters. So then the real person that Natalie Portman is playing in this movie is very similar to the real person that Julianne Moore is playing in this movie. And I don't think we realized that, or I don't think I realized that at the beginning. I was looking at it like the actress is coming in and she's just trying to extract information so that she can do her job later on down the line. But really, there's some sort of it's not necessarily a kinship, but it's a similarity that is glaring in front of you in, like you said, the manipulations. And even when she goes to visit Joe's workplace and she's kind of like, oh, I know what it's like to sneak around with you. And then he's kind of turns on the lights, and then there's a single shot in there right as he turns around and he's facing away from her, where she just kind of like rolls her eyes like she's like, oh man, that didn't work.
Oh yeah.
And that's super early in the movie too. And I was like, wow. So they're very subtle things, but they put them in there purposefully. So that's attention to detail.
Let's put a button on the end of the movie with the bad acting thing. Maybe the statement is what he talks about earlier on in the film when actually it's later on in the film, when after Natalie Portman, and we said spoilers, after Natalie Portman and Charles Melton, after their characters sleep together, she says, well, I understand this story. And he goes, story? This isn't a story. This is my life. And she's like, yeah, but I'm just trying to say that maybe, and he's like, well, thank you for the advice, but what? None of that makes sense, because then why do we do all of this? Because this is my life. So you're saying should just move on? You don't know her. You've been here a week. How do you don't know her? So maybe the end scene is about, we shouldn't be making a movie about this at all. We should not be capitalizing on this at all. Maybe this is two people's lives, and only those two people and the people that they affected are the ones who need to figure out why they need to analyze their life, not make a movie about it. And I keep using the word voyeuristic, but it's a perfect term for what's going on. Maybe it's a statement about look how fake this really is when we try to imitate it. Maybe we shouldn't, and maybe we should just leave people's stories alone. And I mean, it's never going to happen because
that's so really, meta though.
It is very meta. It's meta from
he's
the very beginning.
Making a movie about it.
Absolutely. It's meta from the very beginning. It's meta from the very beginning when she grabs the box off of the porch. You think she's just being a helpful guest who's coming by and stuff like that. And what you don't know is that it's a statement about a statement about a statement about a statement about their lives, and you have no idea when she's carrying that box. You're not in on that joke. You're not in on that thought until later on. So it's all being self-examined at the same time it's being presented. And actually, I think Todd Haynes, that's his fingerprint. That's his thumbprint. That's his the quality that makes him an auteur, in my opinion. Only he gets away with that really very blurred line of what exactly are we watching here? Why are we watching it? And it, maybe he's a smart enough filmmaker that he knows that the audience is going to take what they're going to take from it anyway. So I'm going to present this way, and you take whatever you want from it anyway. But the whole film is meta. If you look at it, it's all, because not only are these the real people, but these are the actor. This is the actor who's playing the real person. And then she's involved in their life. But there's also a mini series that was already made for TV, which the actress who's playing the person in real life is now watching on a screen. I mean, it's all turned in on itself. So
yeah, It's kind of a get out of jail free card, really, when you think about it, because Todd Haynes is saying, like, should we really, be this involved in these people's lives? And then he does that while making a 2-hour long movie about these people's lives,
and talking about film, and talking about movie, and talking about acting, and talking about the superficial qualities that all of those things have. So, but most great filmmakers layer stuff, and Hollywood is always indicting itself. Hollywood went through a phase where it indicted the radio days, and then it indicted TV, and then TV got as popular as movies and started indicting movies, and then they're all focused on each other, and they're all, but it is an interesting question to pose.
Yeah.
If I make a movie about a subject that happened in real life, which this happened in real life, is it okay to make that movie? Should we make that movie? How do we handle this? Do we try to have an understanding and sympathy and empathy to a character who was a child molester? Do we understand that somebody can come in and try to play that said child molester? I mean, I actually think I'm surprised that the movie is getting as great response as it is. People are getting it. So that's good. This strikes me as a film that 20 years from now, people would understand, not just for the campy value, just because it's so layered and so textured and so involved.
It's also, a closer indictment of that particular era and this particular era, whereas 20 years from now, it will probably be a different era. And so then you're able to look at that with more perspective and say, oh yeah, what was going on back then?
Well, somebody's going to make a movie 40 years from now about a director who decides to make an infomercial commercial and decided that they didn't want to do that. So they decided to go with this teenage pregnancy thing. Instead of that, they went with Honey Boo Boo. And the director, it's going to be a film about the director making the movie, making about the director.
Good God.
And the guy's going to be named something TH, something Todd Haynes, something. Yeah. So we know, wink, wink, it's Todd Haynes, but it's not. When you look at, what is the woman's name in real life? Mary Kay
Letourneau.
Right. Mary Kay Letourneau. 3 names. Julianne Moore has 3 names in this movie too. She has her hyphen
Gracie.
name.
Oh, yeah.
Atherton
U.
Yes, exactly. Which is very similar in rhythm to Mary Kay Letourneau.
Okay.
Letourneau. So yeah, for me personally, it's not a film I'm surprised I saw it a second time. The only reason why I saw it a second time was because it had been a while in between. And it's not that it didn't call to me. I have thought about it quite often since the first time I saw it, and it's very close to when I saw it the first time. So it'll be interesting to watch it in 20 years, like we keep talking about, to see the different things that I perceived, misperceived, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you this much. It's got 2 lines in it that has haunted me to this day. And that sounds like I've been pondering it for 40 years, but I cannot get the line when she says, "But you seduced me." Something about it just will not let go of me. And it's an awful scene, and it's an awful way that she perceives that, because he just wants to talk about the possibilities that possibly I was too young. And she turns to him.
You think?
Yeah. But he's not condemning her. He's not saying he was too young. He was saying, I'm having questions. If we're in love, we should be able to talk about all this. Remember all this stuff that you told me, why we should be together? Well, I'm going to put that to the test. But she immediately comes back with a very structured, very controlling statement when she says, who had the power? Who had all the power?
Well, she should be able to answer that.
Well, the question is flawed, because you're asking a 13-year-old if they had all the power. Because in that scene, he is now 13 and she is 36. Mm-hmm. They revert back because you can see how she was and you can see how he is. He's very fumbly. He's very, usually he's
his
very
eyes down.
His eyes down. He's hunched over and
Yep.
he's grabbing at his clothes and stuff like that. You can see who he was when he was 13 years old. And she said, well, who has all the power? The fact that and speaking of meta, the fact that she thinks he had the power when she has all the power, obviously, and then uses that as a statement to control the power that she has against him is a reason to make a movie. A reason to make a movie. And then the second thing that I cannot get out of my mind is when Natalie Portman says to him after they sleep together, well, this is just what adults do. This is just what grown-ups do.
Is she that bored? I don't.
Well, it's
like,
just.
Did she wants to like go in there and just wreck people's lives? I just don't understand.
Well, here's what the thing that's the craziest to me. Well, I don't know what the thing that's the most interesting to me. Okay, he's a nice looking guy. She's a beautiful woman. They probably had chemistry. People commit adultery all the time. People sleep with the wrong person all the time. Not that interesting. I have my own personal views of that, and I have my own personal moral gauge of that, but whatever. Do you? People figure it out, figure yourself out. If that's how you're going to figure yourself out, then so be it. What I find interesting about it is that I think she only slept with him because of the acting thing. Like she thought it was going to bring her closer to the character. Because what's the first thing she does first thing she does after he literally gets up to get them a towel, what's the first thing she does? She grabs that letter and tries to start to read that letter and then has to hide it underneath the couch when he comes back. And she's pissed that she can't read the letter. And then when he leaves, and I think she purposely picked a fight with him to get him out and purposely says to him, that's just what grown-ups do. As such a jab to the fact that he is still probably mentally, psychologically 13 because he's probably had arrested development after having a trauma like that happen to him. And then she uses that to one-up him, to get him out of the room, not because she's embarrassed that she slept with him, not because of whatever moral compass that we're supposed to have, but because she wants to read that letter. And as soon as he walks out the door, she picks up the letter and she hunkers down and she looks happier in that moment than she does almost anywhere else in the film. And the thought that people are so manipulative to the point where we're justifying it for the craft of acting is as traumatic to my brain as the fact that somebody slept with a 13-year-old boy. It's almost par for the course. Now, one has to do with completely wrecking one person's life. So I don't want to make
families.
Yeah, families.
It wrecked families.
Yeah, we're going to go into the back where the old families are. That's what that kid said. And I think that kid's the best supporting actor in the movie. I love that kid. Georgie, I think he's
Georgie.
Yes, yeah. I think Charles Melton is being lifted up into the accolade world. He's gotten a bunch of different nominations. They're talking about an Oscar nomination, and I get it. I totally get it. It's almost strangely purposeful, not only because he is good in the movie, but I think people feel bad for that 13-year-old boy. I do on some level.
He's got these women coming after him like this, like just it never stops. I guess.
I know it doesn't stop, but I actually think that Georgie character, the son's character, is the supporting actor that's the most impressive. There's nothing I don't understand about that kid, and I'm not 100% sure she's telling the truth at the end where he made all that up. But if she is telling the truth, bravo, because I did not see that coming at all. I completely 100% believed him, and I understand both reasons to bring it up, both reasons to lie about it and make it up to mess with this actress's mind, because that man is the smartest man in the film. And then I love when he says, oh, I've been reading up on your profession. I've been looking into the film world. And
the music supervisor.
Yeah. And she's like, what are you trying to ask me here? Like, she makes him say it. And then he goes through the spew of well, I could do this. I'm great with music. I won't tell them anything bad about you. I won't say anything bad about the film. You can pay me off, basically.
Yeah, it's blackmail.
I love that guy. He's the only one who knows what's going on in that world. He's the only one that knows, with the exception of maybe the kids. All three of the kids are pretty smart and in tune. And what's interesting about the daughter, one of the twins, Mary, I believe, when she's in that acting class. And at first, Natalie Portman waves at her. And she's like, oh, actress, famous person waving at me, hi. And then after Natalie Portman says what she says, and because Natalie Portman's speech is basically like, where is the fine line between what is right and what's wrong with pretending to have sex with somebody or really having a sexual encounter, but pretending it wasn't really, where is that? And then they shoot to Mary. And now Mary realizes that moral ambiguity, is that how you say that word? Is I think what Natalie Portman says. And then they shoot to Mary, and Mary's now completely stone-faced, almost pale white, because she realizes that Natalie Portman's not necessarily talking about a sex scene in a movie, but she's really talking about how people perceive what her parents did. And now she's in front of this actress. It's very layered and extremely well done. The supporting characters are superb. And let me say a few things about Julianne Moore, if you'll indulge me. I do not understand that woman. I do not understand how she does what she does. Her line readings are so only her. Remember in Magnolia, you're judging me? The way that she says that is so only her in that moment. Only
all of those lines, like
all of them.
Call me lady.
Yeah.
Like, that's
yeah. There's sickness in my house. Yeah. It's devastating. And she does it here too on a different level. The whole like crying because a cake order got canceled. I've never seen anything like that. So.
Oh, really? I mean, that was more of just a character beat for me. Like that made me understand that she put so much more importance on the cake order and the hot dog because she can't fully understand, the other choices and things that happen in her life that she made that are affecting other people. Like she puts more importance on those things and less importance on the other things. So
do you think she's even capable of having those thoughts? Because
maybe not. Like she said, like you said, she says she's naive and she says she's secure, which that seems like the diagram that's the worst corner of the diagram, of the graph. It's like most secure and most naive. It's like you could really do some bad stuff. Well, when you're in that, so there you go.
Well, there you go. So the film is interesting on so many different levels, and it's an important film for my movie-going watching experience, and I'm glad I saw it, and I'm glad I saw it in the theater. But this is one that's going to be hard to explain to people why they should see it.
Yeah.
Because
how much time do you have?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Exactly. Is it good?
Does not compute.
Yeah, it's like, how much time do you have? That's going to be my answer from now on.
Yeah.
I think what I'll say is that there are moments in movies that I understand and I don't understand and so forth and so on. And I think when you go to a movie like this, you might understand some of it. You might not understand other parts of it. Other than that, you're going to have to figure out your own way through it,
Yeah.
But if they say, should I see it? I'm going to say yes.
Sure.
Because
it's hard to turn away from it.
Well, it's almost like a tongue-in-cheek type of like, I made that person think for 2 hours because I recommended that movie in an interesting way, not in a dun 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 kind of way, not in a Todd Haynes, we need more hot dogs kind of way. And then the shot after that, by the way, is the grill with 200 hot dogs on it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So great.
So one last thing I'll say is that this was a spec script by first-time writer Sammy Birch, but she is a well-known casting director, I guess, in the industry. So she's written some shorts and stuff, but but this is her first feature length screenplay. And so, well, and all the rest are short.
Define spec script.
It's not a contracted script, so it's on speculation. That's what spec means. So means that she just wrote it and like sent it out to people, and I guess somehow Todd Haynes found it and they got.
She's probably knows Todd Haynes on some level.
I would probably, yeah. I don't think that she's done she's been like a casting assistant. She was a casting assistant on Iron Man 3 in North Carolina. So there you go.
Interesting.
But she's been like an actual casting director for the last like 10 years or so. So yeah, it's really neat that she's kind of pivoted and into this. So yeah.
Well, I will not be surprised on any level if she gets an Oscar nomination for Best Original Screenplay. I think it's going to be the surprise, and people will be like, well, we kind of thought maybe, but not that. And then it'll show up. Natalie Portman, I'm almost 100% positive, but that category is so filled this year. It's so wonderful. There's so many people to choose from. Side note, Lily Gladstone is winning all of the awards. I'm just
there you go. Oh yeah, I did hear she won like the New York Film Critics Circle or something.
That movie is also kind of like sneaking in. People are calling it a masterpiece.
It's also going to be available on Apple TV very soon, so a lot more people will watch it, and it will be readily available to watch. So
people thought that it would be nominated for Best Picture and Best Director because it's Scorsese and it's a Scorsese film, but it's actually won quite a few of the prestigious critic awards up to this point, surprisingly to some people, not to others.
Yeah, not to you.
Nope. But anyway, Natalie Portman, I'm not so sure about Julianne Moore because that category is stacked. Also, but if she's in there, I won't be surprised. And also Charles Melton, I think it's going to be his star-making vehicle, and it's going to be the film that puts him where he wants to be in his career, or puts him in a better place in his career with an Oscar nomination. Okay. That said, I'm so all about almost everybody else so far that, you just never know. You just Tony Coda, father Tony Kutzer. I didn't see that coming. I thought he was wonderful, and we talked about how wonderful that one scene was, but I had no idea that he was going to become, an Oscar favorite and go all the way straight down the line. Unimportant to most people, this Oscar conversation, very important to you.
No, that's good. I like keeping track of it. So, and you're a lot more plugged in than I am. So it's interesting. All right. Okay. You can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You can go to facebook.com/actorandengineer, and you can find us on YouTube. Just search for the Actor and the Engineer podcast. We'll see you next time.